The email glowed on my screen like a digital slap to the face. Thanks for the invite to your parents' anniversary party. Can't wait to see the whole family there. I blinked, read it again. My cousin Sydney had always been sweet, but this had to be a mistake. I hadn't heard anything about an anniversary party, let alone sent invitations for one. My name is Brianna, and I built a multi-million-dollar wellness empire from the ground up. But right now, sitting in my corner office overlooking downtown, I felt like that awkward teenager again. The one always left out of family gatherings because I made my sister Lauren uncomfortable. "Vera," I called out, my voice sharper than intended. My assistant appeared instantly, tablet in hand. "What can I find for you?" "My parents' anniversary party. What do you know about it?" Vera's face did that thing where she tries to hide her discomfort. "I actually intercepted some emails about that last week. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you." "Show me." She pulled up an email thread on my monitor. There it was. Correspondence between my mother and the manager of the Grand Ballroom, a venue I'd helped secure for multiple corporate events in the past. "Just don't let her find out who booked the space," my mother had written. "You know how Brianna gets when she's not in control of everything." My fingers curled into fists. "They used my corporate discount, didn't they?" Vera nodded slowly. "They did. And Lauren's handling the planning." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course she is. She's still living at home, playing event planner between temp jobs, while I'm just the daughter who—" I stopped myself. "Pull up the guest list." "Brianna, maybe we should—" "The guest list, Vera." She pulled it up. 200 names, extended family, old neighbors, my parents' golf club friends, Lauren's boyfriend Anthony, everyone except me. My phone buzzed. Another email from Sydney. "Just saw the most beautiful centerpieces Lauren picked out. The roses match the invitation cards perfectly." I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. Lauren crying at my college graduation because I'd stolen her thunder by graduating summa cum laude the same week she got a participation certificate in community theater. Mom consoling her at my company launch party because my success made Lauren feel invisible. Dad staying silent through it all, nursing his scotch. "They're really doing this," I said quietly. "They're celebrating 40 years of marriage by pretending their eldest daughter doesn't exist." "What are you going to do?" Vera asked. I opened my eyes, picked up my phone, and dialed a number. "Gage, it's Brianna. Quick question about the Grand Ballroom. Is it still available for events?" His response made my heart skip. "Funny you should ask. The owner's actually looking to sell. Quietly, of course. Why? You interested?" I caught my reflection in the window, power suit, perfect posture, eyes blazing. "Maybe. Send me the details?" "Will do, though—" He paused. "Isn't that where your family's having their anniversary thing next month?" So he knew. Of course he knew. "Is it? I wouldn't know. I wasn't invited." Silence on the line, then, "I'll send you everything within the hour." And Brianna? Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting ahead. After hanging up, I turned to Vera. "Cancel my afternoon. We have work to do." "Are you sure about this?" she asked, but she was already clearing my schedule. "They want to use my connections while excluding me? Fine, but they're about to learn that Karma has a corner office." I smiled, feeling a plan take shape. And she just got very, very interested in real estate. My phone buzzed again, another family member gushing about the upcoming party. I let it ring. They'd all been so careful to keep this from me, whispering behind my back, probably laughing about how the mighty CEO was finally put in her place. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail. I didn't get where I am by letting people walk all over me. And I definitely didn't build an empire by playing by other people's rules. "Vera," I said, standing up, "get me everything you can on the Grand Ballroom's financials, and find out who's handling the catering for the anniversary party." She nodded, already typing. "What should I tell them if they ask who's inquiring?" I picked up my coat, heading for the door. Tell them it's the new owner. They just don't know it yet. The current owner wants to sell fast, Gage said, sliding a folder across his mahogany desk. Family emergency. They're motivated. I flipped through the paperwork, my heart racing despite my calm exterior. And they're willing to be discreet? For the right price? He leaned back in his chair. They'll tap dance in silence. The numbers were steep, but nothing I couldn't handle. Success had its perks, even if my family saw it as a character flaw. I remembered Mom's voice at Christmas. Not everyone needs to be a CEO, dear. Some of us are happy with simpler things. How fast can we close? I asked. Gage's eyes sparkled. That depends. How fast do you want to own the place where your family's throwing their party without you? Yesterday? He laughed. I figured. My team's already drafted the paperwork. We can have keys in your hand by Friday. My phone buzzed. Lauren posting another party update on Instagram. I ignored it. One condition, I said, pulling out my pen. No one knows about the sale until I say so. Not the staff, not the current bookings, no one. Done. He pushed the contract forward. Though I have to ask, what exactly are you planning? Justice. I signed my name with a flourish. Served at room temperature. Back at the office, Vera had assembled a detailed timeline of the party preparations. Lauren's been working with the venue's event coordinator directly, she reported. They're planning something big for the speeches portion. Speeches? Your mother's writing one. Want to see the draft? I nodded, and Vera pulled up a document on her tablet. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Gage. You might want to see what they've written in the event speech drafts. Check attachment B. I frowned. Vera, where did you get the speech draft? It was in the venue's shared planning folder. Why? I opened Gage's attachment. There it was, the same document, but with comment histories visible. My blood ran cold as I read through the revision notes. Let's focus on Lauren's achievements, Mom had written. No need to mention Brianna's business success. It might make things awkward. Lauren's response, maybe just say she's too busy to attend? Everyone knows how she is. A memory hit me. Age 16, winning the state debate championship. Coming home to find my trophy accidentally broken, Lauren crying because I'd embarrassed her in front of her friends by being such a show-off. Vera, I said quietly, call the venue staff. Schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning. Tell them their new owner wants to discuss some changes to upcoming events. What kind of changes? I smiled. The kind that remind people to be careful what they wish for. That evening, I sat in my penthouse, nursing a glass of wine and scrolling through old family photos. There we were at Lauren's college graduation. Me in the background, deliberately blurred in the family portrait because my new company had just made the news. My phone rang. Sydney. I just found out, she said without preamble, about you not being invited. It's wrong, Brie. But not surprising. Lauren's being horrible about it. Keeps saying things like, finally, an event where I can shine without competition. I took another sip of wine. How's Mom handling the planning? Oh, you know her. Everything has to be perfect. She's using your business connections left and right, bragging about how her daughter's success opened doors. Sydney paused, just not mentioning which daughter. Interesting. I walked to my window looking out at the city lights. Tell me, Sid, how do you think they'd react if they knew I now own those doors? Silence, then a laugh. You didn't. I did. As of Friday, the grand ballroom is mine. Holy shit, Brie. More silence. What are you going to do? I thought about all the times I dimmed my light to make Lauren comfortable. All the achievements I couldn't celebrate because they made my family uncomfortable. I'm going to give them exactly what they want. A night they'll never forget. They'll lose their minds. That's the plan. I finished my wine. But first, I need to see those speech drafts in full. Think you can help? Already on it. Check your email in 10 minutes. She hesitated. Just be careful, okay? You know how Mom gets when she feels humiliated. I thought about the years of subtle humiliation I'd endured, the constant minimizing of my achievements, the way they used my success while pretending I was the family embarrassment. Don't worry, I said. I learned from the best. After hanging up, my phone lit up with a text from Gage. Dinner tomorrow? I have some interesting information about your mother's special anniversary surprise. I smiled, typing back. Perfect. I have some surprises of my own to discuss. Your mother's speech is quite something, Gage said, sliding his phone across the restaurant table. The part about knowing when to slow down is particularly creative. I scanned the full draft, each word like a paper cut. Mom had crafted a masterpiece of passive-aggressive storytelling, weaving Lauren's minor achievements, a freelance gig here, a community theatre role there, into a grand narrative of family success. And here, I pointed to a paragraph, she actually uses my company's charitable initiatives as if they were family projects. The Wellness Center for Underprivileged Women? The one I built after they told me I was showing off by helping people. I took a long sip of wine. Now it's apparently a family commitment to community service. Gage's phone buzzed. Speaking of family, have you seen this? He pulled up a local lifestyle blog. There was Lauren, perfectly posed in a coffee shop, being interviewed about the upcoming celebration. The headline made my stomach turn. Local event planner creates dream anniversary for parents. My sister couldn't make it, Lauren was quoted saying, but she's probably busy being a boss somewhere. You know how it is with career-obsessed people. Career-obsessed, I repeated, the words bitter on my tongue. As opposed to what? Professionally unemployed? There's more, Gage said quietly. Keep reading. Lauren had gone on to describe how she'd single-handedly arranged everything, including securing the prestigious venue through family connections. She'd even taken credit for the charitable donation aspect, the standard percentage of event costs my company always gave to local causes. My phone lit up with a text from Vera. Meeting with legal in 10 minutes. They want to discuss potential ramifications. I need to go, I told Gage. Apparently, my lawyers are nervous. He caught my hand as I stood. Brianna, are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back. They crossed that bridge when they decided to use my success while erasing me from the family narrative. The law firm's conference room was all mahogany and disapproval. Richard, my head counsel, looked like he'd swallowed something sour. You could humiliate them legally, sure, he said, adjusting his tie. But are you prepared to end all ties forever? They ended those ties, I replied. I'm just making it official. At least let us draft a cease and desist about using your company's name. No, I stood up. I want them to keep using it. I want them to build their perfect little narrative, because when I walk into that ballroom as the owner, every name they dropped, every connection they claimed, every achievement they co-opted becomes part of my story, not theirs. Back in my office, Sydney called. There's something you need to know, she said, her voice shaking. About that internship you tried to arrange for Lauren 10 years ago. I remembered it clearly. A perfect opportunity at a top PR firm. Lauren had bombed the interview spectacularly, showing up late and unprepared. Mom told her to tank it, Sydney said. Said if Lauren got the job, she'd be pulled into your shadow forever. Better to fail on her own terms than succeed in your world. The room seemed to tilt. How do you know this? I overheard them planning it. Mom convinced Lauren you were only offering it to show her up, that you wanted her to fail. A knock at my door interrupted us. Vera stood there, holding a box. Someone anonymously dropped this at reception, she said. You need to see what's inside. I opened the box while still on the phone with Sydney. Inside were childhood photos, dozens of them. Family vacations, school events, holidays. In every single one, my face had been methodically scratched out. What is it? Sydney asked. hearing my sharp intake of breath. Just mom being mom, I said, picking up a destroyed photo of my high school graduation. Hey, remember how she always said I was too focused on success to care about family memories? Yeah? Looks like she's been focusing on erasing those memories for years. I closed the box. Tell me something, Sid. The anniversary party. Are they serving champagne? Cases of it. Why? I thought about the vintage bottles in the ballroom's cellar, now my cellar, because I just decided to upgrade their order. If they want to toast to family loyalty, they should at least do it with the good stuff. Brianna, don't worry, I said, a plan crystallizing. I'm not going to crash their party. Shh. I hung up and turned to Vera. Call the ballroom staff, tell them to replace all the champagne with the reserve collection, and have them prepare the main microphone for a special announcement. What kind of announcement? I looked at the box of mutilated photos. The kind that turns family secrets into public statements. The security feed from the ballroom filled my office monitor. Lauren stood center stage, directing workers like a general commanding troops. Mom hovered nearby, adjusting flower arrangements that were already perfect. The lighting needs to be softer, Lauren complained. More romantic. This isn't a business conference. I smirked at the irony. She was standing directly under the new crystal chandelier I'd ordered installed last week. The workers glanced at each other, probably wondering why the owner's renovation choices were being criticized by an event planner. Turn up camera 3, I told Vera, who was controlling the feed. I want to see Dad. There he was, looking uncomfortable in the corner, checking his phone. Classic Dad, always present but never really there. The man who taught me about business by showing me exactly what not to do. Stay quiet, avoid conflict, let others write your story. My office phone rang. Ms. Morrison, your father is here to see you. Speak of the devil. Send him in. Dad entered, looking older than I remembered. Brianna, you're looking well. Cut the small talk, Dad. What do you want? He shifted, eyes darting around my office. There are rumors about changes at the ballroom. Your name came up. Did it? That's interesting, considering my name was deliberately left off the guest list. About that, he cleared his throat. Your mother thought that it would be easier to use my connections if I wasn't there to complicate things? I pulled out the box of defaced photos. Like she's been doing for years? His face paled at the photos. Where did you get those? Does it matter? What matters is that while you were avoiding conflict, your wife was literally scratching me out of family history. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stood up. I understand that next week things are going to change. Dramatically. What does that mean? I smiled. It means you might want to prepare Mom for some surprises at her perfect party. After he left, Sydney called again. They're getting nervous. Lauren keeps saying things are going too smoothly. Good. I watched the security feed as Lauren obsessed over place settings. How's Mom handling it? Alternating between bragging about the venue and complaining that you've never appreciated family enough to host events here yourself. I laughed. If she only knew. There's something else, Sydney said, her voice dropping. I found more photos in Mom's study, recent ones. She's been documenting all your press coverage, your company's success, but there are notes in the margins, cruel ones. Let me guess, about how I'm destroying the family dynamic with my ambition? Worse, she's been keeping a list of every time your success made Lauren feel bad, like she's building a case against you. My other line beeped. Vera. I have to go, Sid. Keep me posted. I switched lines. What is it? Someone's here, Vera said urgently, with a delivery you need to see. A minute later, she entered carrying a thick manila envelope. Inside was a stack of papers, old emails, text messages, and handwritten notes, all documenting years of deliberate exclusion, manipulation, and sabotage. Who sent this? The card just says they're not as untouchable as they think. I recognized Lauren's boyfriend Anthony's handwriting. Interesting. The man who'd been smugly watching this family drama unfold had finally picked a side. My phone buzzed with a text from Gage. Ownership change hits the papers tomorrow morning. Last chance to reconsider. I typed back, perfect timing. They should know who owns the stage before they try to perform on it. Looking back at the security feed, I watched Lauren direct the staff to hang a banner, celebrating 40 years of perfect love. Perfect. Right. I picked up my phone again. Vera, call the printer. I want to make some changes to their banner. And get me the guest list. It's time to send out some special VIP notifications. What kind of notifications? The kind that lets certain guests know they might want to bring cameras. I smiled, watching Lauren fuss over the seating chart. After all, this is going to be a very memorable evening. My phone buzzed again. A message from Mom to the family group chat I was still mysteriously part of. Everything's coming together beautifully. This will be a night that truly represents our family values. I typed a response, then deleted it. She was right about one thing. It would definitely represent their values, just not in the way she imagined. Vera, I called out, get me the ballroom's event manager. It's time to brief the staff on some changes to the evening's program. What should I tell them? I looked at the box of mutilated photos, the stack of documented betrayals, and the security feed showing my family building their perfect celebration on the foundation of my excluded success. Tell them the owner is finally coming to claim her stage. The staff has been briefed, the event manager reported, standing nervously in my office, though some have concerns about the unusual requests, such as the modified banner, the champagne switch, the special entrance queue. She shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Lauren has been very specific about how everything should run. I'm sure she has. I handed her an envelope. Here's your new script for the evening. Memorize it. She peeked inside, eyes widening. But Ms. Lauren's introduction speech will no longer be necessary. I smiled. Unless she'd like to introduce the owner of the venue instead. After she left, Gage arrived carrying a thick file. Tomorrow's business section. They're running the ownership announcement on the front page. Perfect timing. Lauren's been calling the paper all morning, he said, settling into a chair, trying to get them to feature her party planning business in the society pages. I laughed. How's that working out? They're more interested in the mysterious new owner of the city's most prestigious venue. He paused. Speaking of which, your mother's been leaving messages with my office. Apparently, she's worried about last-minute changes to their contract. Is she now? I pulled up the security feed. Mom was pacing the ballroom, phone in hand. What kind of changes? The kind that happen when ownership changes hands. He leaned forward. Brianna, are you absolutely sure about this? Once you step onto that stage, they'll what? Stop inviting me to family events? Stop pretending I don't exist except when they need my connections? I gestured to the box of defaced photos. Look what they've already done. My phone buzzed. Lauren posting another Instagram story about the party preparations. The caption read, "When you single-handedly create the perfect celebration, event planner life, family first." Single-handedly, I muttered. Right. Sydney burst into my office out of breath. You need to see this. She thrust her phone at me. Mom's been writing a book. What? A self-help book about dealing with difficult family members who prioritize success over love. She's been using you as the main case study. I scrolled through the manuscript pages Sydney had photographed. Each chapter was a thinly veiled attack on my character, my choices, my success, all while painting Lauren as the embodiment of proper family values. When was she planning to publish this? She's announcing it at the party, right after her speech about family unity. I felt the last thread of hesitation snap. Vera! She appeared instantly. Yes? Move up the timeline. I want the ownership announcement to hit tonight, not tomorrow. But now, and call the ballroom. Tell them to prepare the presidential suite. I'll be getting ready there tomorrow. After everyone left, I sat watching the security feeds. Lauren was having another meltdown about the lighting. Mom was rehearsing her speech in a corner, practicing her fake tears. Dad was being dad, invisible and ineffective. My phone rang. Anthony, Lauren's boyfriend. "I assume you got my package," he said without preamble. "The documentation?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I'm tired of watching this circus." He sighed. "Lauren, she's not well. Your mother's enabled her victim complex for years. Someone needs to end this cycle." "And you chose now to develop a conscience?" "I chose now to pick the winning side." He paused. "Check your email. I just sent you the video of Lauren practicing her surprise speech for tomorrow. The one where she announces she's taking over your foundation's community outreach program. Your mother's idea, of course." I checked the video. There was my sister, rehearsing lines about how she'd finally found her calling by elevating my foundation's work. "Thank you, Anthony. This is helpful." "Don't thank me. Just fix this mess." Some of us actually love her enough to want her to grow up. After hanging up, I called Gage. "Change of plans," I said. "I need you to be my +1 tomorrow night." "I thought you weren't invited." "I'm not, but the owner of the venue doesn't need an invitation to her own ballroom." He was quiet for a moment. "You know this will be war." "No," I replied, watching Mom practice her performance on the security feed. "This will be a lesson in consequences." My phone buzzed one final time. The newspaper confirming the evening edition would lead with the ballroom's ownership change. I typed a quick message to Vera. "Make sure every guest receives a copy of the paper as they arrive tomorrow. Let's give them something to discuss during cocktail hour." Tomorrow, they'd all learn what happens when you try to erase someone who owns the very ground you're standing on. And I had front row seats to the show. The presidential suite's mirror reflected back a woman in a black designer dress, power radiating from every carefully chosen detail. Gage whistled as he entered. "You look ready for war," he said, adjusting his tie. "Not war, justice." I checked my phone. "The newspapers have been delivered to the reception area?" "Stacked perfectly beside the guest book. Your mother's already called 6 people demanding to know what's going on." The ballroom's security feed showed chaos. Lauren was having a meltdown over the mysterious banner change, now reading "Celebrating Family" in all its truth. Mom was frantically trying to reach the venue manager, who, on my instructions, had become mysteriously unavailable. "It's time," I said, slipping on my heels. "Ready to crash a party?" "Lead the way, boss." We took the private elevator down. Through the service entrance, I could hear the murmur of 200 guests, the clink of champagne glasses, and Lauren's increasingly shrill voice trying to maintain control. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event manager's voice rang out right on cue. "If I could have your attention, please." Mom cut in. "We're not ready for announcements yet. Please welcome the owner of the Grand Ballroom." The double doors swung open. I stepped into the spotlight, Gage at my side. The silence was deafening. Lauren dropped her champagne glass. It shattered, the sound echoing through the perfectly decorated space she'd spent months planning. "Welcome, everyone," I said into the microphone that seemed to materialize in my hand. "I hope you're enjoying the venue. I know I am." Mom's face went from confused to horrified as she spotted the newspapers being passed around. Dad seemed to shrink into his tuxedo. "Brianna," Mom started, her voice sickly sweet. "What a lovely surprise." "Is it?" I moved to center stage. Lovely as the surprise of finding out about this party through a cousin's email? Or lovely as the surprise of discovering my own mother's been writing a book about me? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lauren started forward, but Anthony held her back, shaking his head slightly. "You weren't invited," Lauren spat. "This is my event." "Actually," I smiled, "it's mine. Everything in this building belongs to me now. including that lovely champagne you're all drinking, a special reserve I had brought up from my cellar. More murmurs. I spotted Sydney in the crowd, trying to hide her grin behind her hand. But please, I continued, don't let me interrupt the celebrations. I believe Mom was planning to give a speech, something about family values and unity. Mom stood frozen, her carefully rehearsed speech crumpling in her trembling hands. No? Then allow me. I nodded to Vera, who started the slideshow. Let's talk about family. The first image appeared on the massive screen, one of the childhood photos with my face scratched out, then another, and another. Mom's been quite the artist over the years, I said conversationally, though her latest work, that book manuscript about her difficult daughter, really shows her range. That's private, Mom finally found her voice. Like the private party you planned using my business connections? Or the private foundation work Lauren was planning to announce she's taking over? Lauren went pale. How did you? I own the building, remember? Every rehearsal, every planning session, every secret meeting, all captured on my security cameras. The crowd was riveted now, phones recording discreetly. I spotted at least 3 local journalists, invited by Lauren for publicity, now getting a very different story. But don't worry, I continued. I'm not here to ruin your perfect celebration. I'm here to enhance it. First, I've donated the entire cost of this event to my foundation's new program for family trauma survivors. And second, I pulled out an envelope. I'm giving you exactly what you wanted, a party without me in it. I opened the envelope, removing legal papers. This is a formal declaration severing all professional and personal ties with this family. No more connections to use, no more success to resent, no more daughter to erase from photos. You can't do this, Mom whispered. I already have. I turned to the crowd. The bar is open, the music is paid for, and the night is young. Please, enjoy celebrating this family's values. They've earned exactly the reputation they're about to receive. I started to leave, then paused. Oh, and Lauren? The lighting is perfect exactly as it is. I designed it myself. The crowd parted as Gage and I walked toward the exit. Behind us, chaos erupted. Lauren screaming, Mom crying, Dad finally trying to speak up too late. But I didn't look back. I'd learned long ago that the best revenge isn't watching them fall. It's walking away while they realize you've already won. You manipulative bitch, Lauren's voice rang through the ballroom as she charged after me. You always have to ruin everything. I turned slowly, aware of every phone camera trained on us. Do I? Or do I just refuse to let you ruin me? Ladies and gentlemen, Mom tried to salvage the situation, her society smile cracking. Perhaps we should move on to the dancing portion. No, I cut in. Let's hear what Lauren has to say. You've been practicing speeches, haven't you, sis? About taking over my foundation's work? Lauren's face flushed. That was supposed to be a surprise. Like the surprise of finding out you and Mom sabotaged that internship 10 years ago, or the surprise of discovering Mom's been writing a book painting me as the villain in her perfect family narrative. You don't understand, Mom stepped forward. We did it to protect her. From what? Success? Growth? Actually having to earn something for once? The crowd was dead silent now. Even the waiters had stopped moving, champagne trays frozen mid-service. You never understood family, Lauren spat. It was always about your next big achievement, your next headline. Really? I pulled out my phone. Should we read your Instagram posts from the last month? The ones taking credit for my business connections? Or maybe Mom's manuscript chapters about how I abandoned family values for corporate success, while she was using that same success to book this venue? Dad finally stepped forward. Brianna, please. No. I turned to him. You don't get to please me now. Not after staying silent while they scratched me out of photos, excluded me from events, and tried to steal my foundation's work. We didn't steal, Lauren started. Then what do you call announcing you're taking over my community outreach programs without even speaking to me? I gestured to the gathered crowd. You were going to stand right here and claim my work as your own, just like Mom was going to profit from a book demonizing me. A reporter stepped forward. Ms. Morrison, would you care to comment on— Actually, I would. I smiled. I wasn't invited to this party, so I came as the host. And as host, I have an announcement. Every dollar spent on this event has been matched and donated to establish a new wing of my foundation, specifically focused on helping people escape toxic family dynamics. More gasps. Mom swayed slightly. You're destroying this family, Lauren cried. No, Lauren, you and Mom did that years ago. I'm just refusing to play victim in your story anymore. Sydney appeared at my side. I have something to add. She pulled out her phone. Mom, want to explain these texts? The ones where you and Lauren plan to announce her taking over Brianna's foundation work? Or should we discuss the book contract you signed last week? Mom's face went ashen. How did you— I sent them. Anthony stepped forward. Because this needs to end. Lauren, they've been enabling your jealousy for years, making you dependent, feeding your insecurities. Shut up, Lauren screamed. You don't know anything. I know everything, I said quietly. Every manipulated event, every sabotaged opportunity, every rewritten narrative. And now? I gestured to the recording phones. So does everyone else. An elderly guest spoke up. Deborah, is this true? Have you been doing this to your own daughter? Mom's perfect mask cracked completely. She made Lauren feel inferior. By succeeding? I laughed. No, Mom, you did that. By teaching her that someone else's success diminishes her worth, by making her believe she could only shine if I was erased. The papers, Dad suddenly said. The ownership announcement. You planned this. Like you planned this party without me? Yes. Consider it a lesson in consequences. Lauren lunged forward, but Anthony caught her arm. Don't, he warned. You've lost enough dignity tonight. I turned to the crowd one final time. The party will continue. The bar is open. But know this, every photo taken, every moment captured is now property of the venue. My venue. Use them wisely. As I walked toward the exit again, a reporter called out, Ms. Morrison, your family clearly didn't invite you. Why come at all? I stopped, turned, and delivered the line I'd been waiting all night to say, because sometimes the black sheep of the family needs to remind the wolves that she grew up to be a lion. The headlines the next day would call it the society event of the season, but not for the reasons my family had planned. And somewhere in the city, a manuscript about a difficult daughter would never see publication. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't telling your story, it's making them live it. The empty ballroom felt different in the quiet dawn. I sat at the bar, champagne in hand, watching the cleaning crew remove the last traces of last night's drama. I thought I'd find you here, Sydney said, sliding onto the stool beside me. Social media is on fire. Black sheep revenge is trending. Of course it is. I smiled tiredly. How's the family? Mom's had her phone off since the party. Lauren's posted 17 Instagram stories about betrayal and toxic success. Dad? She shrugged. Being Dad. So nothing's changed. Everything's changed. She pulled out her phone. Anthony sent me this. Lauren's finally agreed to see a therapist. Turns out watching yourself melt down in viral videos is quite motivating. The morning sun streamed through the windows, catching the crystal chandelier. My chandelier. Ms. Morrison? The event manager approached. The foundation representatives are here about the donation arrangements. Send them up to my office. I turned to Sydney. Want to help me plan something actually worth celebrating? Always. In my office, Gage was waiting with coffee and a stack of newspapers. You made quite a splash. Good. I picked up the top paper. Maybe now they'll understand. Success isn't a finite resource they needed to protect Lauren from. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. Bit late for that, I muttered, but saved the message anyway. Vera entered with a folder. The foundation board loves your idea for the new program. They want to launch next week. Perfect. I signed the papers. Make sure the press release emphasizes the focus on family trauma and recovery. And Sydney? Yeah? You're joining the board. It's time someone in this family actually supported something worthwhile. A knock at the door. Anthony. Lauren's asking to see you, he said without preamble. She's different today, quieter. No more screaming about family betrayal. More like finally facing some hard truths. He sat down. Your mother's book manuscript got leaked online. The comments, they're not kind. Truth rarely is. Brianna, Gage touched my arm. Maybe it's time to shift focus. You've made your point. Now you can build something new. I looked around my office. At Sydney, who'd always seen the truth. At Anthony, who'd chosen integrity over loyalty. At Gage, who'd helped me turn pain into power. You're right. I stood up. Vera, call the contractor. It's time to renovate this place. New name, new purpose. What are you thinking? The Phoenix Room, a place where people rise from the ashes of what tried to destroy them. My phone buzzed again. Lauren. I get it now. I'm sorry it took public humiliation to understand what private pain couldn't teach me. I showed the message to Anthony. He nodded. She means it. For the first time, I think she actually means it. Tell her, I paused. Tell her the Phoenix Room's first event will be a fundraiser for mental health awareness. She can help plan it, if she's willing to do it as herself, not as my replacement. Sydney grinned. Healing through event planning? That's either brilliant or crazy. Sometimes they're the same thing. I walked to the window. Besides, she needs to learn that success doesn't come from erasing others. It comes from building something of your own. The morning sun painted the city gold, promising a new day. Below, workers were already changing the venue's signage. My phone kept buzzing with messages, some supportive, some angry, all proof that truth, once spoken, can't be unspoken. So, Gage said, joining me at the window. Was it worth it? I thought about the scratched-out photos, the stolen opportunities, the years of calculated erasure. Then I thought about Lauren's text, Dad's apology, the foundation's new direction. Ask me again when the Phoenix Room opens, I replied. When we're helping people turn their pain into purpose. And your mother? She can write whatever story she wants now. I'm done being her character. Sydney raised her champagne glass. To the black sheep who became a lion. No, I corrected, raising my own glass. To the truth that set her free. The sun climbed higher, washing away the last shadows of last night's revelations. Outside, a new sign caught the light. The Phoenix Room, rise above. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in the burning of bridges, but in building something better from the ashes. And sometimes the most powerful family isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you build from the pieces of your broken past. I looked at my newfound family gathered in my office and smiled. Let's get to work. We have some rising to do.
The sound of expensive cutlery scraping against fine china filled the dining room of my family's mansion as I pushed my food around my plate, trying to tune out my sister Olivia's latest speech about her corporate achievements. And then she announced, swirling her red wine, the board unanimously approved my proposal for the Asian expansion. We're projecting a 30% increase in revenue by next quarter. I glanced at my parents, watching their faces glow with pride. Dad, CEO of Blake Industries, nodded approvingly while Mom reached over to squeeze Olivia's hand. This was our traditional Christmas dinner, a celebration of the family business and its rising star. What about you, Sophie? Mom turned to me, her smile fading slightly. Still working on that. What do you call it? Nexus Technologies, I supplied, straightening in my chair. And yes, we're actually. Her little startup, Olivia interrupted with a laugh. What is it now? 2 years? And still working out of that tiny office downtown? I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to correct her. The tiny office was just a front. What my family didn't know was that Nexus Technologies had quietly become one of the fastest-growing software companies in the country. We operated under various shell companies, our true ownership hidden behind layers of corporate structuring. Someone has to try something new, I said carefully. Not everyone wants to work for the family business. Dad set down his fork, his expression hardening. The family business that put you through Stanford? That paid for your MBA? That same business you turned your back on? I didn't turn my back on anything, I replied. I chose to build something of my own. Build? Olivia snorted. Sophie, let's be honest. You're playing entrepreneur while the rest of us do real work. Blake Industries is a Fortune 500 company. We're about to launch the biggest expansion in our history. What have you built? If they only knew. While they've been focused on their traditional manufacturing business, I developed an AI-driven supply chain management system that was revolutionizing the industry. Major corporations were already using our software, including several of Blake Industries' competitors. I'm doing fine, I said simply, taking a sip of wine. Fine isn't the Blake standard, Mom chimed in. Look at Olivia, youngest VP in company history, featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. We just want you to live up to your potential, darling. I thought about the email I'd received that morning. An offer from a major tech company to acquire Nexus for $2.8 billion. I turned it down. My plans were much bigger than that. Speaking of potential, Olivia continued, the expansion project needs additional funding. Dad, have you considered approaching Morgan Stanley? Their tech division has been very aggressive lately. I hid my smile behind my wine glass. I knew exactly why Morgan Stanley was suddenly interested in manufacturing technology. They'd been trying to get a meeting with Nexus's mysterious CEO for months. Actually, Dad replied, we're exploring several options. The market's tighter than we expected, but Blake Industries' reputation speaks for itself. What they didn't know was that their reputation wasn't enough anymore. The manufacturing sector was changing rapidly, and companies that didn't adapt to new technology were being left behind. I'd seen their financials, not as the daughter they dismissed, but as the secret owner of a significant portion of their stock. Have you considered private equity? I asked innocently. I hear Phoenix Capital is looking for manufacturing investments. Olivia rolled her eyes. Please don't try to give business advice, Sophie. Phoenix Capital doesn't even take meetings with companies our size. They're way out of our league. I nodded thoughtfully, not mentioning that I'd had dinner with Phoenix Capital's CEO last week. Being underestimated had its advantages. Well, Mom stood up, smoothing her expensive dress. Shall we move to the living room for dessert? Sophie, help me with the dishes. In the kitchen, Mom busied herself with coffee cups while I loaded the dishwasher, a task Olivia was apparently too important to handle. Honey, Mom said softly, I know you think you're proving something with this startup business, but it's time to be realistic. There's always a place for you at Blake Industries. I straightened up, meeting her eyes. I am being realistic, Mom. More realistic than you know. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my CFO. Asian investors confirmed. Ready to proceed with Phase 2. I typed back quickly. Green light. Start buying tomorrow. Work? Mom asked disapprovingly. On Christmas? Something like that, I replied, pocketing my phone. The market never sleeps. Back in the living room, Olivia was holding court again, detailing her plans for Blake Industries' future. I settled into an armchair, half listening as she outlined initiatives I knew would never materialize. Their company was already in trouble, though they didn't realize it yet. By this time next year, she declared, we'll have offices in Singapore, Shanghai, and Seoul. The Blake name will be global. Assuming the funding comes through, I murmured. What was that? Dad asked sharply. Nothing, I smiled, just thinking out loud. Later that night, in my penthouse apartment, not the small downtown office my family thought I lived above, I reviewed the latest reports from my team. Nexus had already secretly acquired 43% of Blake Industries stock through various subsidiaries. Tomorrow's buying spree would put us over 51%. My phone lit up with another text, this time from my assistant. Board meeting scheduled for next week. All major shareholders will be present. Perfect, I replied. Time to introduce the real CEO of Nexus Technologies. I walked to my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere out there, my family was probably still congratulating themselves on their business acumen, still pitying their failure of a daughter who couldn't cut it in the real corporate world. In 1 week, they would learn how wrong they'd been. In 1 week, they would discover that the daughter they dismissed had built something far bigger than they could imagine. In 1 week, everything would change. I poured myself a glass of the same expensive wine we'd had at dinner, but this time, I allowed myself to smile. Let them laugh. Let them mock my pathetic startup. Their reaction when they discovered the truth would be worth every condescending comment, every dismissive glance, every family dinner spent biting my tongue. After all, revenge is a dish best served with a controlling interest. The week after Christmas passed in a blur of stealth acquisitions and strategic meetings. From my real office, the entire top floor of a downtown skyscraper, I watched as Nexus Technologies systematically gained control of Blake Industries through carefully orchestrated stock purchases. We've crossed the threshold, my CFO, Michael, announced during our morning briefing. 51.3% ownership as of market close yesterday. Blake Industries is effectively ours. I nodded, studying the real-time stock ticker on my wall. Blake Industries' share price had been declining steadily, a fact my family seemed determined to ignore. Their outdated manufacturing processes and resistance to technological innovation had left them vulnerable. What's the status of their funding search? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Desperate, Michael smiled. Every major bank has turned them down. Morgan Stanley won't even take their calls anymore. They've scheduled an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. My phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. Family dinner tonight. Mandatory. Dad's orders. I smiled, knowing exactly why this dinner had been called. They needed to discuss the company's financial crisis, but they were too proud to do it anywhere but behind closed doors. Time to prepare for the final act, I told Michael. Make sure all our documentation is ready for tomorrow's board meeting. That evening, I arrived at my parents' mansion to find the atmosphere considerably different from Christmas dinner. Gone were the celebratory wines and smug speeches about expansion. Instead, tension hung heavy in the air as we gathered around the dining table. The situation, Dad began without preamble, is more challenging than we anticipated. Several key investors have expressed concerns about our technological infrastructure. Concerns? Olivia scoffed. They're being ridiculous. Our methods have worked for 40 years. I took a sip of water, watching them carefully. Maybe they're worried about competition from more innovative companies. Not you too, Olivia snapped. Just because you play with computers doesn't make you an expert on manufacturing. Actually, I set down my glass. I know quite a bit about modern manufacturing. For instance, did you know that automated supply chain management can reduce operational costs by up to 40%? That's exactly what we don't need, Dad interrupted. More tech talk. We need serious solutions. Like what? I asked innocently. Have you considered selling some shares to raise capital? Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Sell shares? This is a family company, is it? I pulled out my tablet. Because according to public records, ownership has been shifting significantly over the past few months. Olivia leaned forward, her face flushing. What are you talking about? Various investment groups have been quietly acquiring Blake Industries stock. As of today, the Blake family only controls about 30% of the company. Dad stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. That's impossible. I would know if someone was buying us out. Would you? I asked calmly. When was the last time you actually reviewed the shareholder registry? Or are you too busy dismissing technological innovation as unnecessary? How do you know all this? Olivia demanded. Because, I smiled, I've been watching very carefully. Tomorrow's board meeting should be quite interesting. You're not even on the board, Mom said dismissively. No, but Nexus Technologies' CEO is. As the majority shareholder, we're entitled to a seat. The silence that followed was deafening. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me as understanding slowly dawned. Nexus Technologies? Dad whispered. That's your little startup? Not so little anymore, I replied. We're valued at $4.2 billion as of last quarter. And yes, we now own 51.3% of Blake Industries. Olivia's face had gone completely white. You're lying. That's impossible. I pulled up another document on my tablet and slid it across the table. Here's the complete shareholding structure. You'll notice the various shell companies and subsidiaries all lead back to one parent organization, Nexus Technologies. Why? Mom's voice cracked. Why would you do this to your own family? I didn't do anything to you, I said quietly. I built something revolutionary while you were all too busy mocking me to notice. The fact that I now control the company you thought was too good for me. That's just poetic justice. Dad found his voice, anger replacing shock. You think you can just walk in and take over? We'll fight this. With what resources? I stood up, straightening my jacket. Your company is hemorrhaging money. Your technology is outdated. The only thing keeping your stock price from completely collapsing is the fact that I've been buying it. Get out, Olivia hissed. Get out of this house. I picked up my tablet and headed for the door, pausing only briefly. I'll see you all at tomorrow's board meeting. Oh, and Olivia? About that Asian expansion you were so proud of. It's canceled. We have better plans for the company. As I drove away from the mansion, my phone exploded with messages from family members. I ignored them all except one. From my grandmother, who had always seen my potential. Show them what you've built, dear. It's time they learned what real success looks like. In my office later that night, I reviewed the presentation for tomorrow's board meeting. The plan was comprehensive. A complete technological overhaul of Blake Industries, integration with Nexus's advanced systems, and a new management structure. Michael appeared in my doorway. The board members have been notified of the ownership change. Most of them are anxious to meet the real CEO of Nexus Technologies. I'm sure they are, I smiled. Make sure security is ready tomorrow. I have a feeling my family won't take their demotion quietly. As I looked out over the city lights, I thought about all the family dinners where they dismissed my dreams, all the condescending comments about my little startup. Tomorrow, they would learn the truth about the empire I'd built in silence. And this was just the beginning. The morning of the board meeting dawned clear and cold. I dressed with particular care, a custom-designed power suit that cost more than Olivia's entire wardrobe, though she'd never know it. Today wasn't just about taking control. It was about showing my family exactly who I'd become while they weren't watching. Blake Industries headquarters still bore my grandfather's original bronze plaque in the lobby. I ran my fingers across his name as I passed, wondering what he would think of today's events. He had been the true innovator in the family, before Dad turned the company into a monument to outdated thinking. "Good morning, Ms. Blake." The security guard nodded respectfully. He'd clearly been briefed about the new ownership structure. The boardroom was already tense when I arrived. 14 board members sat around the massive mahogany table, with Dad at the head, at least for the next few minutes. Olivia sat at his right hand, her face tight with barely controlled rage. Mom had apparently decided to attend as well, though she had no official role. "Now that everyone's here," Dad began, his voice strained, "we need to discuss." "Actually," I interrupted, taking a seat directly opposite him. "As majority shareholder, I'll be conducting this meeting." Michael entered with our legal team, distributing documents to each board member. The room fell silent as they read the first page. "This is outrageous," Olivia finally exploded. "You can't just walk in here and—" "I can and I am." I cut her off smoothly. Nexus Technologies now owns 51.3% of Blake Industries. My first act as majority shareholder is to restructure the board. Dad, Olivia, you'll find your resignation letters in those packets. Please sign them. I built this company. Dad slammed his fist on the table. "No," I corrected him. "Grandfather built this company. You inherited it and refused to let it evolve. Now it's bleeding money and losing market share to more innovative competitors." I nodded to Michael, who started the presentation. Charts and graphs appeared on the room's screens, showing Blake Industries' declining performance against market trends. "In the past 5 years," I continued, "your profit margins have dropped 40%. Your technology is obsolete. 3 major clients have already jumped ship to competitors using modern supply chain management systems, specifically systems created by Nexus Technologies." The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd known things were bad, but seeing the numbers laid bare was shocking. "And you think you can fix this?" Olivia sneered. "With your computers and algorithms?" I smiled, clicking to the next slide. "We already have. Those same systems you've been mocking have revolutionized manufacturing logistics across the industry. Companies using our platform see an average 60% increase in efficiency, which is why our startup's value has surpassed Blake Industries by several $billion." Mom gasped audibly. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "The choice is simple," I addressed the board. "Sign the resignation letters and accept a generous severance package, or face a very public revelation about just how badly you've mismanaged this company. You would destroy your own family's reputation." Mom asked incredulously. "You mean the family that never believed in me? That dismissed every achievement because it didn't fit your narrow definition of success. I stood up, commanding the room's attention. I'm not destroying anything. I'm saving this company from your outdated leadership. The board members were already signing the documents, eager to align themselves with the new power structure. They were business people, after all. They could see which way the wind was blowing. Dad stared at the resignation letter for a long moment before finally picking up his pen. I never thought my own daughter would betray me like this. Funny, I replied. I never thought my father would be too proud to see the future of his own industry. I guess we both had blind spots. As security arrived to escort them out, Olivia turned back for one last shot. You'll regret this. You have no idea how to run a real company. I laughed genuinely for the first time that day. My little startup is worth $4.2 billion. I've revolutionized an entire industry while you were playing corporate dress-up. I think I'll manage. After they left, I moved to the head of the table, my grandfather's old seat. Now, shall we discuss the real future of Blake Industries? The next few hours were a blur of strategic planning and reorganization. By the end of the day, Blake Industries had a new board, a new direction, and a new connection to the technological innovations that would save it. 1 week later, the business world was buzzing with the news. Techish Protevijiwi, REVAL's secret empire. Next U.S. technology CEO, Techi Skolentioro, a FAMIOYBUSINES, Sophie Bielaki. The hidden Bilionair. I received exactly one message from my family, a handwritten note from my grandfather, who had been quietly watching from his retirement. You did what I always hoped someone would. You brought Blake Industries into the future. I'm proud of you, kid. The note now sits framed in my office, next to the original business plan for Nexus Technologies that my family had laughed at years ago. Every morning, I look at them both and remember that success doesn't always look like what others expect it to. 3 months later, Blake Industries stock had doubled. Our integrated technology platform was revolutionizing the manufacturing sector, just as I'd predicted. The board members who had so quickly switched allegiance were now falling over themselves to praise my vision. Dad and Olivia eventually tried to reconcile, of course, once the company's success became impossible to ignore. I received elaborate apologies, explanations about how they'd only wanted what was best for me, invitations to family dinners where they promised things would be different. I declined them all. Instead, I sent a simple response. The time for family dinners is past. If you'd like to schedule a meeting, please contact my office. We can discuss your future roles in the company, starting at entry level, of course. Everyone needs to learn the basics of modern manufacturing. They never replied. Now, 1 year later, I sometimes drive past our old family mansion, remembering all those dinners where they dismissed my little startup. The house seems smaller somehow, less imposing. Or maybe I'm just seeing it through new eyes, the eyes of someone who built something bigger than they could imagine. Last week, a young intern asked me why I'd kept my company secret for so long, why I'd let my family underestimate me until I could take control. Sometimes, I told her, being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. People show their true nature when they think you're beneath them, and success is sweetest when no one sees it coming. She nodded thoughtfully, then asked one more question. Was it worth it? Giving up your family for success. I looked out my office window at the city below, at the empire I'd built while they were too busy mocking me to notice. I didn't give up anything, I replied. They gave up on me long ago. I just proved them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. And that, really, was better than any family dinner could ever be. I can still hear the crystal glasses clinking at my sister Madison's promotion party. The sound echoes in my memory like a bitter reminder of that night, the night that changed everything. The elite of Boston's financial world had gathered in the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton, all to celebrate Madison Blake, the youngest VP in Sterling Financial's history. I stood in the corner, wearing a dress I'd designed myself, watching my parents beam with pride as Madison commanded the room. At 32, she was their crowning achievement. Harvard Business School graduate, rising star in finance, and now Vice President of Mergers and Acquisitions. Eleanor. My mother's voice cut through my thoughts as she appeared beside me, champagne flute in hand. At least fix your hair. Everyone here is a potential investor. I resisted the urge to touch the dark curls I'd carefully styled. My hair is fine, Mom. Fine isn't good enough in this world, she sighed, smoothing her own perfectly coiffed silver hair. Look at your sister. She understands presentation, networking. At least one daughter made it. The words stung, even though I'd heard variations of them for years. Ever since I'd turned down a position at a prestigious consulting firm to start my own business, I'd been the family disappointment. Never mind that my online fashion platform was growing steadily. In their world, if you couldn't see the corner office, success didn't exist. Ellie? Madison's voice carried across the room as she approached, her Louboutins clicking against the marble floor. Come meet Richard Sterling. He's interested in hearing about your little website. I forced a smile as she dragged me toward a distinguished-looking man in his 60s. Richard Sterling owned half of Boston's financial district, including the building where Madison now had her corner office. So, he said, peering at me over his glasses, Madison tells me you run some sort of fashion blog? Actually, I started. Stitch and Style is a technology platform that connects independent designers with... Oh, how fun, he interrupted, already looking past me for someone more important. A hobby business. Well, keep at it. Not everyone can be as driven as your sister. Madison's laugh tinkled like the crystal glasses. Ellie likes to do her own thing. But enough about that. Did you hear about the Maxwell merger? I excused myself and headed for the bar, needing something stronger than champagne. The bartender had just handed me a gin and tonic when I overheard two men in suits talking nearby. The numbers on the Maxwell deal seemed too good to be true, one muttered. Everything about Sterling's golden girl seems too good to be true, the other replied. But who's going to question success? I filed the conversation away, along with the dozens of other whispers I'd been collecting over the past year. Something about Madison's meteoric rise didn't add up, but nobody wanted to look too closely at a winning streak. My phone buzzed. A notification from my company's analytics dashboard. Another spike in user engagement. While Madison worked in her glass tower moving imaginary millions around, I was building something real. Not that my family would ever understand that. Still checking your Instagram likes. Madison appeared beside me, her smile sharp. You should really think about getting a real job, Ellie. I could put in a word at Sterling. I have a real job, I replied evenly. In fact, we just closed our series of funding round. Her perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. Oh, someone actually invested in your little project. Several someones. We raised $12 million. For a moment, her mask slipped. Something dark flashed across her face before the smile returned. How sweet. Well, don't let it go to your head. The tech bubble always bursts eventually. She sauntered away to rejoin her admirers, but not before I caught a glimpse of something else in her expression. Fear. It was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it, but it made me think of all those whispers, all those numbers that seemed too good to be true. Later that night, in my downtown loft that doubled as Stitch and Styles' office, I opened my laptop and began digging. Madison had always been driven, but lately, her success had taken on a frantic edge. The Maxwell merger she'd orchestrated had made headlines for its unprecedented returns. Every deal she touched turned to gold, almost as if. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. When I opened it, I found an envelope on the floor. No sender, no markings. Inside was a USB drive and a note. Your sister isn't as golden as she seems. If you want the truth, look at the attached files. I stared at the drive for a long time before plugging it in. Years of working in tech had taught me about security risks, but something told me this was important. As files filled my screen, spreadsheets, emails, bank statements, my hands began to shake. The perfect daughter, the family success story, was nothing but a carefully constructed lie, and I was holding proof that would bring it all crashing down. My phone rang, making me jump. It was Madison. "I hope you're not planning to do anything stupid with the information you just received," she said without preamble. My blood ran cold. "How did you?" "I have eyes everywhere, little sister. Remember that. Now, delete those files and forget about them. Focus on your cute little fashion website and stay out of my business." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the darkness of my loft, staring at my screen where evidence of her fraud glowed accusingly. She thought she could intimidate me, just like she always had. She thought I was still the quiet sister who played it safe. But she had no idea what I'd been building in the shadows while she basked in her false spotlight. She had no idea that I'd been preparing for this moment, gathering my own resources, building my own empire. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd been saving for a special occasion. "Ms. Jang, this is Eleanor Blake. I believe we need to talk about Sterling Financial and my sister." Ms. Dang, one of the most ruthless corporate raiders in the business, had been following my company's progress with interest. She'd offered to back me in any venture I chose. I'd been waiting for the right opportunity. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. "I assume you've seen the evidence?" "Yes, and I know exactly what to do with it." As I hung up, I looked at the photo on my desk, our family at Madison's college graduation, everyone beaming at her while I stood in the background. That dynamic was about to change, but not in the way anyone expected. Madison thought she was the only one who knew how to play the game. She was wrong. While she'd been building her house of cards, I'd been laying a foundation of steel and concrete, and when her empire of lies crumbled, I would be there to pick up the pieces. For pennies on the dollar. The morning after receiving the USB drive, I walked into my company's real office. Not the loft where I'd started, but the entire 10th floor of a downtown high-rise. 50 employees looked up from their desks as I passed, each one a reminder of what I'd built while my family was busy dismissing me. "Morning, Ms. Blake." My assistant Thomas handed me a coffee. "Ms. Jang called twice already. And there's something else. Sterling Financial stock dropped 15% in pre-market trading." I paused mid-sip. "Any news about why?" "Rumors about irregularities in their recent merger deals. Nothing concrete yet, but the market's nervous." I nodded, hiding my smile. The wheels were already in motion. My office overlooked the financial district, with a perfect view of Sterling Financial's gleaming headquarters where Madison held court. But while her view came from borrowed power, mine was built on something real. Stitch and Style had revolutionized the fashion industry, connecting independent designers directly with manufacturers and consumers. We weren't just a platform. We were changing how the industry worked. "Thomas," I called out, "set up a meeting with our legal team and get me everything you can find about Sterling Financial's holdings, especially any distressed assets they might need to offload quickly." He raised an eyebrow but didn't question me. That's why I had hired him. He understood discretion. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Have you seen the news about Sterling? Your sister needs family support right now, not whatever scheme you're plotting." I deleted it without responding. Of course, she assumed I was plotting something. In her mind, I was always the jealous sister, never the successful one. The evidence on the USB drive had revealed the ugly truth behind Madison's perfect facade. She'd been cooking the books for years, inflating profits, hiding losses, and paying off auditors. The Maxwell merger that had made her famous, built on fraudulent valuations and insider trading. But I wasn't interested in exposing her. Not yet. I had bigger plans. "Ms. Blake," Thomas appeared in my doorway. "Your sister is here." Madison stormed in, her designer suit slightly wrinkled, a detail that spoke volumes about her state of mind. "What did you do?" she hissed, throwing a financial report on my desk. "Our stock is in free fall." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. The perfect mask was cracking. "I haven't done anything, Madison, but it seems the market is finally asking questions about those amazing returns of yours. Don't play innocent. Someone's been feeding information to our shareholders. Trading patterns show massive shorts being placed last week, right after you got that USB drive." I smiled. "Sounds like you have a leak. Maybe you should focus on that instead of accusing your unsuccessful sister." "Listen carefully." She leaned across my desk, her voice low and dangerous. "If you try to destroy what I've built, I'll make sure everyone knows about your own creative accounting." My laugh caught her off guard. "My accounting? Please, go ahead. Audit every penny. Unlike you, I actually built something real." "Real?" she scoffed. "You sell dresses on the internet." "No, I created a technology that's revolutionizing an entire industry. But you'd know that if you or our parents ever bothered to understand what I do." She straightened up, adjusting her jacket. "Just stay out of my way, Ellie. You're playing a game you don't understand." After she left, I opened my laptop and sent an email to Ms. Zhang. Time for phase 2. The next week was chaos. Anonymous tips to financial regulators triggered a formal investigation into Sterling Financial. Madison appeared on CNBC, defending their practices, but the damage was done. Their stock dropped another 30%. I watched it all from my office, remembering every dismissive comment, every family dinner where my achievements were ignored in favor of Madison's latest triumph. "Ms. Blake," Thomas interrupted my thoughts. "The board of Sterling Financial just called an emergency meeting, and your mother's online one." I picked up the phone, already knowing what I'd hear. "What have you done?" Mom's voice was shrill. "Your sister's career is being destroyed, and you're just sitting there watching." "Actually," I replied calmly, "I'm not just watching, I'm buying." "What?" "Sterling stock. My company has been acquiring shares all week. At these prices, it's quite a bargain." Silence. Then, "You planned this. You're trying to take over Sterling Financial. No, Mom. Madison destroyed Sterling Financial. I'm just here to pick up the pieces. I hung up and turned to Thomas. Get me Ms. Zhang. It's time to make our move. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While Madison had been building her house of cards, I had been quietly amassing resources. Stitch and Style's success had given me significant capital, and Ms. Zhang's backing provided the rest. Now, with Sterling's stock in free fall, we could acquire controlling interest for a fraction of its real value. But first, the final blow had to fall. I opened the USB drive and began forwarding its contents to federal regulators. Within hours, the story broke across all major news networks. Sterling Financial BPACUSED of massive FRAD. Madison BLAK. The fall of A Financial Protoagui. SECLAUNCESCRMINDL NVESTIG into Sterling DELINGAs. My phone exploded with messages from family members. I ignored them all except one. From my father. You're no longer my daughter. I stared at those words for a long time before replying. I never was. Madison was your only daughter. I was just the disappointment who built an empire while you weren't watching. That night, as Sterling Financial's board met to deal with the crisis, I sat in my office with Ms. Zhang, watching the city lights flicker below. They'll have to sell, she said, swirling her whiskey. The question is, who will they sell to? I smiled. They'll sell to Phoenix Acquisitions. Your shell company, she nodded approvingly. They won't know it's you until it's too late. Exactly. Madison might understand fraud, but she never understood real business. She never understood me. Tomorrow, I would begin the process of acquiring the company where my sister had built her fraudulent empire. The company that had made her the family's golden child while I was dismissed as a failure. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment to savor the irony. The little fashion website they'd mocked had given me the power to buy their precious Sterling Financial for pennies on the dollar. And this was just the beginning. The morning of the Sterling Financial Board meeting dawned bright and cold. I dressed carefully in a suit I designed myself. Midnight blue, impeccably tailored. Today, I would step out of the shadows and into my full power. The lobby of Sterling Financial was chaos. Reporters crowded the entrance, cameras flashing. Security guards struggled to maintain order as protesters waved signs demanding justice for defrauded investors. I walked through it all, Thomas at my side carrying the acquisition paperwork. The same security guard who had once stopped me, claiming I didn't look like I belonged here, now held the door open with a respectful nod. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. Madison sat at the far end. Her perfect facade finally cracked. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her designer outfit slightly askew. Our parents flanked her like protective shields, but even they couldn't protect her now. Richard Sterling himself sat at the head of the table, looking every bit as old as his 70 years. The last week had aged him considerably. "What is she doing here?" Mom demanded, standing up. "This is a private board meeting." I took a seat directly opposite Madison. "I'm here representing Phoenix Acquisitions. We own 30% of Sterling Financial's shares, which entitles us to a seat at this table." "Phoenix Acquisitions?" Madison's voice cracked. "That's impossible. They're the ones who've been buying up our stock." I smiled, sliding a document across the table. "Not just buying. As of this morning, We've made an offer to acquire controlling interest in Sterling Financial. The paperwork is all there. The room erupted in chaos. Board members frantically flipped through the documents while Madison stared at me, realization dawning in her eyes. "You," she whispered. "You're Phoenix." "Surprise, sister dear." Richard Sterling cleared his throat. "The offer appears legitimate. Given our current situation, the board must consider it. You can't be serious." Madison slammed her hand on the table. "She orchestrated this whole thing. She's trying to steal my company." "Your company?" I laughed softly. "You mean the company you nearly destroyed with your fraud? The company whose stock is worth less than half what it was 2 weeks ago?" "That company?" Our father stood up, his face red with anger. "How dare you come in here like this? After what you've done to your sister?" "What I've done?" I met his gaze steadily. "I built a legitimate billion-dollar company while you were all fawning over Madison's house of cards. I created real value while she created fake profits. The only thing I'm guilty of is seeing an opportunity when it presented itself." "The board needs to discuss this privately," Richard Sterling announced. "Ms. Blake, both Ms. Blakes, please wait outside." In the hallway, Madison grabbed my arm. "Why? Why did you do this to me?" "To you?" I pulled free from her grip. "This isn't about you, Madison. It never was. This is about building something real, something lasting, something you never understood. I built something real. I was successful. You built a pyramid scheme in a designer suit," I corrected her. "And now, it's crumbling, just like every house of cards eventually does." Our mother approached, her heels clicking angrily on the marble floor. "Your father and I will never forgive you for this betrayal." I smiled sadly. "Like you never forgave me for choosing my own path, for building something you couldn't understand or control. I stopped needing your forgiveness a long time ago." The boardroom doors opened. Richard Sterling emerged, looking grave. "The board has voted to accept Phoenix Acquisition's offer," he announced. "Given the circumstances, we feel it's in the best interest of our shareholders." Madison crumpled into a nearby chair, her perfect world finally shattered completely. I turned to Thomas. "Please escort the former VP to clear out her office and call security. I want all her files preserved for the federal investigation." "You can't do this," Madison shrieked as security approached. "This is my company." "Not anymore," I replied calmly. "Oh, and Madison? The corner office has a lovely view. I think I'll keep it." Over the next few hours, I watched from my new office as Madison was escorted from the building, carrying a box of personal items. Our parents left shortly after, not even glancing up at my window. My phone buzzed. A text from Ms. Zhang. "Beautifully executed. Your sister never saw it coming." I smiled, remembering all those family dinners where they dismissed my little website. Now Stitch in Style was worth billions, and I'd just acquired one of Boston's oldest financial institutions. The next morning, the headlines told the story. "Tech H-E-N-T-R-E in your EQIRES-STERLI financial. Eleanor BLAK. From Fayion STRTUP to Financial POWERATOUSE. Sterling SVANDAL. One set STER falls as ANO Daver rises." A week later, I received an invitation to a family dinner. I almost laughed at their predictability. Now that I'd proven my success, they wanted to reconcile. I sent back a simple response. "Too busy running 2 companies. Maybe next time." Madison eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts of securities fraud. She served 5 years in a minimum security prison. Our parents sold their house to pay legal bills and moved to Florida, where they presumably still tell everyone about their successful daughter. Only now they mean me, though they never mention how I achieved that success. As for me, I merged Sterling's legitimate assets with my tech empire, creating something entirely new. The same analysts who once dismissed me as a fashion blogger now write lengthy profiles about my business genius. But the real victory wasn't in the acquisition or the headlines. It was in proving that success doesn't always wear a designer suit or work in a corner office. Sometimes it builds quietly, steadily, until it's strong enough to reshape the world. Last week, I received a letter from Madison, newly released from prison. "I understand now," she wrote. "You aren't just building a company. You are building revenge." I didn't bother responding. She still didn't get it. This was never about revenge. It was about creation versus destruction, substance versus appearance, truth versus lies. In my new office, high above Boston's financial district, I keep a photo from Madison's promotion party, the night she was celebrated while I stood in the corner, supposedly jealous of her success. I keep it to remind myself that true power doesn't need to announce itself. It builds in silence, grows in shadow, until it's ready to step into the light. Sometimes I think about that night, about Mom's words. At least one daughter made it. She was right, just not in the way she thought. I adjusted my simple black dress in the mirror of my penthouse apartment, deliberately choosing the plainest outfit in my closet. The standard issue MacBook I'd bought specifically for family visits sat on my desk, its screen displaying a few basic digital art pieces. Nothing too impressive, nothing that would hint at the empire I'd built. The invitation to the Morrison family reunion sat on my kitchen counter, its gold embossing catching the morning light. Hosted, as always, at my sister Diana's mansion in the Hamptons. Join us for a celebration of family success, the card proclaimed, making me wonder if they'd ever celebrate any of mine. My phone buzzed. A message from my CFO about our latest acquisition. "Contracts are ready, Maya. Morrison Tech's board just approved the sale. They have no idea Dreamscape Animation Studios is the buyer." I smiled, tucking the phone into my purse. 10 years of carefully hiding my success was about to pay off in the most satisfying way possible. The drive to the Hamptons gave me time to reflect on how I'd gotten here. Growing up in the Morrison family meant one thing. Business was everything. My father, James Morrison, had built Morrison Tech from the ground up, turning it into a respected name in enterprise software. My sister Diana had followed perfectly in his footsteps, getting her MBA from Harvard and rising through the company ranks. And then there was me, the disappointment, the daughter who spent her time doodling in notebooks instead of studying business strategies. "Art isn't a career, Maya," my father would say, his voice heavy with disapproval. "It's a hobby at best, a distraction at worst." I remember the day I told them I was majoring in animation at art school instead of accepting my place at Wharton. The silence in our dining room was deafening. "You're throwing your life away," Diana had said, while our mother quietly dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, as if I'd just announced a terminal illness. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that I'd also been taking night classes in business administration. While they thought I was wasting time at art school, I was actually building the foundation for something bigger than they could imagine. My first animated short film won a student competition. The prize wasn't much, $5,000 and some industry recognition, but it was enough to start. I used the money to hire 2 other artists, working out of my tiny apartment to create content for small businesses. That's when I discovered something interesting. The corporate world was desperate for good animation. Training videos, marketing materials, product demonstrations. There was a huge market for high-quality digital content, and very few studios that could deliver it professionally. Within 2 years, my little team had grown to 15 people. We incorporated as Dreamscape Animation Studios, with me using my middle name, Phoenix, on all the paperwork. Maya Phoenix, not Maya Morrison, became the name behind what would grow into one of the most innovative animation studios in the country. The family never knew, of course. To them, I was still just Maya, the struggling artist who occasionally sold a digital piece online or did freelance work for local businesses. Every time they asked about my career, I gave them just enough information to maintain the illusion. Diana's mansion came into view, its manicured lawns and perfect landscaping exactly what you'd expect from someone who measured success in square footage. Cars lined the circular driveway, all luxury brands, all making my deliberately modest Honda Civic look even more out of place. I parked at the far end of the drive, taking a moment to check my reflection again. I'd left my designer clothes at home, worn minimal makeup, kept my hair simple. Everything about my appearance had been carefully curated to maintain the image my family had of me. The struggling artist, the family disappointment. Maya. My mother's voice carried across the driveway as I approached the house. We were starting to wonder if you'd make it. I returned her air kiss, noting how her eyes quickly scanned my outfit, probably calculating its cost and finding it appropriately underwhelming. Traffic, I explained, following her into the house, and I had to finish a commission. Oh, someone actually paid for your drawings? The pause before drawings was subtle but deliberate. If she only knew that just yesterday, I'd signed off on a $50 million contract with a major tech company for a series of animated training programs. Instead, I smiled sheepishly. Just a small business website. Nothing exciting. The house was exactly as I remembered it from previous gatherings. Ostentatiously decorated, designed to showcase the Morrison family's success. Photos lined the walls. Diana at her Harvard graduation, Diana with the Morrison Tech Board, Diana on the cover of Business Weekly. The single photo of me was from high school, before I'd disappointed everyone by choosing art over business. The great room was already full of relatives when we entered. Conversations about stocks, mergers, and market trends filled the air. My cousin James was holding court near the fireplace, talking about his hedge fund's latest acquisition. Aunt Patricia was showing off photos of her son's new startup. And there, in the center of it all, was Diana, perfectly coiffed in what I recognized as a $12,000 Oscar de la Renta dress. Maya, she called out, her voice carrying that familiar note of condescension. I'm so glad you could take time away from your art to join us. She embraced me briefly, careful not to wrinkle her dress. You look, she paused, searching for a diplomatic word, comfortable. Thanks, I said, pulling at my target dress self-consciously, playing the part she expected. Your dress is beautiful. Oscar de la Renta, she confirmed, smoothing the fabric. A little celebration for closing our latest acquisition. Morrison Tech just bought out our biggest competitor in the enterprise software space. I bit back a smile. If only she knew that in less than 24 hours, Morrison Tech itself would belong to my little art studio. That's wonderful, I said. Things must be going well. Better than ever, She beamed. In fact, I was just telling everyone about our next big move. We're branching into digital content creation, animations for corporate training, marketing, that sort of thing. My heart skipped a beat. This was exactly why I'd moved to acquire Morrison Tech. They were planning to enter my territory, potentially becoming a major competitor. Instead, they were about to become part of my empire. Not that Diana knew that yet. Animation? I asked innocently. That sounds complicated. Diana laughed, the sound carrying across the room. Oh, Maya, it's all business strategy. The actual drawing part is just technical work. We'll hire people for that. People like, she gestured vaguely in my direction. Well, Other relatives had drifted over, drawn by Diana's laugh. Still drawing cartoons, Maya? My cousin James asked, not bothering to hide his smirk. My fund is always looking for administrative assistants if you want a real job. Thank you, I said quietly. But I'm doing okay with my art. Okay? Diana raised an eyebrow. Is that why you're still driving that old Honda? Still living in that tiny apartment? They had no idea that I owned the entire building where my tiny apartment was located, or that my car collection included a Porsche and 2 Teslas. The Honda was just for family visits. I get by. I shrugged. Not everyone needs a mansion. Getting by isn't the same as succeeding. My father's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him watching me with that familiar look of disappointment. Diana's latest deal is worth more than you'll probably make in your entire life drawing pictures. I felt a flash of anger but pushed it down. In less than a day, they would all learn just how wrong they were. The contracts were signed, the press release written. By this time tomorrow, Maya Phoenix would be revealed as the CEO of Dreamscape Animation Studios and the new owner of Morrison Tech. But for now, I just smiled and excused myself to get a drink. Let them have their moment of superiority. Let them believe what they'd always believed about me. After all, revenge is an art form too. The family reunion dragged on into evening, each hour bringing a new opportunity for my relatives to remind me of my perceived failures. I kept checking my phone, watching as messages from my executive team confirmed that everything was in place for tomorrow's announcement. Press release approved by legal. New York Times exclusive secured. Board transition documents ready for signing. I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sunset over Diana's perfectly manicured garden. When my father approached, he held a glass of his favorite scotch, the same brand I had a case of in my office, though he didn't know that. Maya, he said, his voice carrying that perpetual note of disappointment, your mother and I have been talking. I braced myself. These conversations never ended well. Diana's new digital content division will need artists, he continued. Basic level stuff. Nothing too creative. But it would be steady work, benefits, a real salary. He emphasized real, as if what I did wasn't real work. She's willing to give you a chance, despite your limited business experience. I took a sip of my champagne to hide my smile. If he only knew that my company's annual revenue was nearly triple what Morrison Tech made in digital services. Thank you, Dad, but I'm okay with my freelance work. He sighed heavily. Maya, you're 32 years old. Don't you think it's time to stop playing around with drawings and join the real world? Look at your sister. She's made something of herself. Through the window's reflection, I could see Diana holding court among our relatives, probably sharing another story of her business triumphs. She'd always been good at that, making sure everyone knew exactly how successful she was. I know you think art is just playing around, I said carefully, but there's more to it than you realize. Is there? He gestured at my simple dress, my unassuming appearance, because from where I stand, all I see is wasted potential. You could have gone to Wharton, could have been part of Morrison Tech's legacy. Instead, you chose to throw it all away for what? Digital doodles. The words stung, even after all these years, even knowing what I knew. Actually, I started, almost ready to tell him everything, but my phone buzzed again. A message from my COO. Morrison Tech board members all confirmed for tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting. They have no idea what's coming. I swallowed my confession. Less than 12 hours. I could wait that long. Actually what? My father prompted. Nothing, I said. You're right. I made my choices. He shook his head and walked away, leaving me to watch the final rays of sun disappear behind the trees. Across the room, I heard Diana's laugh ring out again. Maya's always been different, she was saying to our Aunt Patricia. Some people just aren't cut out for real success. At least she's finally accepting the hand up we're offering. I checked my watch. 7:30 p.m. In less than 14 hours, everything would change. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of subtle jabs and condescending offers of help. Cousin James offered to teach me basic business accounting. Aunt Patricia suggested her daughter could help me build a proper website for my little art business. Even my mother got in on it, quietly showing me job listings for graphic design positions at local marketing firms. Through it all, I maintained my facade of quiet resignation, playing the role of the struggling artist they all expected me to be. But inside, I was counting down the hours. Finally, as the party wound down, Diana cornered me by the coat check. I hope you'll seriously consider Dad's offer, she said, her voice dripping with folk concern. The position wouldn't be anything too challenging. Just basic artwork for corporate presentations, employee handbooks, that sort of thing. We'd start you at an entry-level salary, of course, but it's better than whatever you're making now. I thought about my penthouse office overlooking Central Park, about the team of over 200 artists and animators who worked for me, about the groundbreaking projects we were developing that would revolutionize digital animation. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long, she advised. Once we announce our expansion into digital content next week, we'll have plenty of qualified applicants. I'm only offering because you're family. I nodded, accepting my cope from the attendant. Speaking of announcements, will you be at the office tomorrow? Of course, she said proudly. 9 a.m. sharp. We have a major meeting with our mystery buyers. Some big animation studio is interested in partnering with us. She smirked. See what happens when you think bigger than just drawing pictures. Good luck with the meeting, I said, turning to leave. Maya, she called after me. That outfit you're wearing, if you do decide to take the job, you'll need to dress more. Professionally. Appearance matters in the corporate world. I looked down at my intentionally modest dress, thinking of the closet full of designer clothes waiting at home. I'll keep that in mind. Driving home, I finally let myself feel the full weight of what was about to happen. 10 years of hiding my success, of letting them believe I was a failure, all leading to this moment. Back in my penthouse, I hung up my struggling artist costume and changed into silk pajamas that cost more than Diana's precious Oscar de la Renta dress. My real laptop, not the prop I took to family functions, was open on my desk, displaying the final acquisition documents for Morrison Tech. A message popped up from my assistant. Everything set for tomorrow. Car will pick you up at 8:30 a.m. The Morrison Tech Board doesn't know you're attending the meeting. I poured myself a glass of scotch, the same brand my father had been drinking, and walked out onto my terrace. The city lights sparkled below, a canvas of electric stars. Somewhere out there, Diana was probably still basking in her imagined triumph, telling her husband about her plans to give her struggling artist sister a chance at a real career. My phone rang, the private line only my executive team had access to. It was Marcus, my COO. "Maya," he said when I answered, "just wanted to confirm you're ready for tomorrow. Once we make the announcement, everything changes. Your family? They'll finally see the truth." I finished. "All of it. Are you sure you want to do it this way? We could send someone else to the meeting. Keep your identity private a little longer." I thought about my father's disappointment, Diana's condescension, all the years of being treated as less than because I chose art over their version of success. "No," I said firmly. "I want to be there. I want to see their faces when they realize who they're really dealing with." After hanging up, I stayed on the terrace for a long time, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. Every dismissive comment, every patronizing offer of help, every family gathering where I'd had to bite my tongue, it had all led to this moment. Tomorrow, they would learn that the daughter they dismissed as a failure had built something bigger than they could imagine. Tomorrow, they would understand that success doesn't always look the way they think it should. Tomorrow, Maya the struggling artist would be revealed as Maya Phoenix, CEO of Dreamscape Animation Studios and the new owner of Morrison Tech. I smiled, raising my glass to the city lights. The art of deception was about to become a masterpiece of revelation. The Morrison Tech boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it from childhood visits, all mahogany and leather, old money and older pride. I stood in the private elevator, wearing a custom channel suit that cost more than 6 months of the entry-level salary Diana had condescendingly offered me. "Ready, Miss Phoenix?" Marcus asked beside me. We'd worked together since the beginning. When Dreamscape was just 3 people in my apartment, I checked my reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. Gone was the carefully cultivated image of the struggling artist. Today, I looked every inch the CEO I truly was. "Ready?" I confirmed, just as the elevator doors opened to the executive floor. Diana was already in the boardroom, speaking animatedly to the other board members. My father sat at the head of the table, looking imperial in his custom suit. Neither of them noticed me at first, too busy discussing their plans for the future. A future they didn't realize was about to change dramatically. "The Dreamscape representatives should be here any minute," Diana was saying. "Once we finalize this partnership, Morrison Tech will dominate the digital content space." "Actually," I said, stepping into the room, "there's been a slight change of plans." The room fell silent. Diana's mouth dropped open, her professional composure cracking for the first time I could remember. "Maya?" My father stood up, confusion evident on his face. "What are you doing here?" "This is a private board meeting." I smiled, placing my briefcase on the table. "I know exactly what this meeting is. In fact, I called it." "This is ridiculous," Diana snapped, recovering her voice. "Security." "Won't be necessary," Marcus said smoothly, stepping forward. "Miss Phoenix has every right to be here." "Phoenix." Diana's eyes narrowed. "Her name is Morrison." "Actually," I said, opening my briefcase and beginning to distribute documents. Maya Phoenix is my professional name. The name I use to build Dreamscape Animation Studios from the ground up. The name that's about to become very familiar to everyone in this room. The blood drained from my father's face as he looked down at the documents I placed in front of him. Acquisition papers, final sale contracts, press releases ready to go. This is impossible, he whispered. Is it? I took my place at the opposite end of the table. Let me tell you a story about a girl who loved art and business equally. Who took night classes in business administration while attending art school. Who saw an opportunity in the market for high-quality corporate animation and built a company that now grosses over $100 million annually. Diana was frantically flipping through the papers, her hands shaking. You're Maya Phoenix, the CEO of Dreamscape? The same, I confirmed. The company you've been trying to partner with, it's mine, has been since I founded it 10 years ago, right around the time you all decided I was throwing my life away. But you're just an artist, Diana stammered. You live in a tiny apartment. You drive a Honda. I couldn't help but laugh. I own the building where that tiny apartment is located. The Honda is just what I drive to family functions. Would you have preferred I showed up in my Porsche? Given you one more thing to assume I couldn't afford. My father was still staring at the documents, particularly the page showing Dreamscape's current market valuation. All this time, he murmured. All this time, I agreed. Every family gathering where you mocked my career choice. Every condescending offer of help. Every comparison to Diana's real success. I was building something bigger than Morrison Tech could ever dream of being. Why? Diana demanded. Why hide it? Why let us think? Because you never would have accepted it. I cut her off. You would have tried to take control, to make it part of the Morrison Tech empire. You would have turned my vision into just another division of your company. I needed to build this my way, on my own terms. I stood up, smoothing my designer suit. And now, as of 9 a.m. this morning, Dreamscape Animation Studios is the proud owner of Morrison Tech. We'll be restructuring the company, focusing on innovation rather than tradition. Diana, your position as CEO will be eliminated, though you're welcome to interview for a role in our creative department. Father, you'll be transitioned to an advisory role until your retirement next month. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the other board members, who usually deferred to my father in everything, sat in stunned silence. You can't do this, Diana finally whispered. Actually, I can and I have. The board approved the sale last week, though they didn't know I was the buyer. The contracts are signed. The press release goes out in, I checked my watch, approximately 10 minutes. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. The New York Times exclusive was live. Art meets tech. Dreamscape Animation Studios acquires Morrison Tech in surprise deal. CEO Maya Phoenix reveals plans for digital innovation. I turned my phone around, showing them the headline. By the way, Diana, about that entry-level position you offered me yesterday, I'll have to decline. I'm afraid I'm overqualified. The next hour was a blur of legal formalities, shell-shocked board members signing transition documents, and my father sitting in stunned silence at the head of the table that was no longer his to command. As the board members filed out, leaving just my family, Diana finally found her voice again. All these years, she said, her voice hollow, you let us believe you were struggling. You let us pity you. No, I corrected her. You chose to pity me. You chose to see what you expected to see: the failed artist, the family disappointment. You never once considered that I might be capable of more. My father stood up slowly, looking older than I had ever seen him. Maida, save it, I said, but not unkindly. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because it was the right business decision. Dreamscape needs Morrison Tech's infrastructure to expand, and Morrison Tech needs our innovation to survive in the modern market. I gathered my things, preparing to leave. There will be a family dinner tonight at Le Bernardin to formally announce the merger. I trust you'll both be there. They nodded mutely. Good. Oh, and Diana? I paused at the door. To dress professionally. Appearance matters in the corporate world, after all. The ride back to my office was quiet. Marcus knew me well enough to let me process everything in silence. It wasn't until we were in my penthouse office, overlooking the city, that he spoke. Feel good? I looked out at the city, thinking about the path that had led me here. It feels right, like finally finishing a painting I've been working on for 10 years. My phone was flooding with messages. Relatives who had suddenly seen the news, who were just now discovering that the struggling artist they dismissed was actually one of the most successful CEOs in the digital media space. Cousin James, who had offered to teach me basic accounting, had already sent 3 messages asking if we could discuss potential synergies with his hedge fund. Aunt Patricia, who'd suggested her daughter help me build a website, was calling repeatedly. Even my mother had texted, "Why didn't you tell us?" I left them all unanswered. They'd have their chance to talk at dinner tonight. Instead, I opened my laptop and began working on the speech I would give to Morrison Tech's employees tomorrow. They needed to know that while leadership was changing, their jobs were secure, as long as they were willing to embrace innovation and creativity. A final message came through from Diana. I need to understand. Please, can we talk before dinner? I thought about it for a long moment before replying. Come by my office, the real one. Top floor of the Phoenix building on 5th Avenue. The security desk will be expecting you. An hour later, Diana stood in my office, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Her eyes darted around the space, taking in the original artwork on the walls, the view of Central Park, the clear evidence of success she'd never noticed before. Why? She asked simply. Why what? Why did I hide my success? Why did I buy Morrison Tech? Why did I let you all believe I was a failure? All of it. I gestured for her to sit, because you and Dad never would have accepted my success on my terms. You would have tried to make it fit your definition of achievement. Board meetings, quarterly reports, traditional corporate structure. But Dreamscape succeeded precisely because it wasn't traditional. We innovate. We create. We do things differently. But we're family, she protested. We could have helped. Like you helped yesterday. I raised an eyebrow, offering me an entry-level position out of pity. That's not help, Diana. That's control. She had the grace to look embarrassed. I never knew, never even suspected, because you never looked. None of you did. You saw what you expected to see, the artistic sister who couldn't cut it in the real world. You never considered that art and business might not be mutually exclusive. Diana was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city view. What happens now? Now we move forward. Morrison Tech becomes part of Dreamscape, and we build something new together. If you're willing to learn, to adapt, there could be a place for you here. But not as CEO. Not anymore. She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. You're not just my little sister anymore, are you? I never was just your little sister, I corrected her. You just never saw who I really was. That evening, as I stood addressing our extended family at Le Bernardin, I saw something I'd never seen before in their eyes. Respect. Not pity, not condescension, but genuine respect. To new beginnings, I raised my glass, and to the art of success. Later that night, back in my penthouse, I opened my old sketchbook, the one I'd carried through art school, filled with the early concepts that would become Dreamscape's first projects. On the final page, I'd written a quote that had guided me through all these years. The greatest art lies in hiding your mastery until the perfect moment of revelation. I smiled, closing the book. My masterpiece was finally complete.